Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a books beside my bed video for you where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading. This was my first week back at work for the year, so it was kind of a lot, but I did read 7 things and I'm really excited to share them with you. So this is my reading week from the 28th of January until the 3rd of Feb. Also, I'm going to apologise in advance if there is random drilling noises that appear in this video. I'm going to try and cut them out, but we'll see how I go because apparently somewhere in my apartment block, I suspect it's one of the retail stores that's being outfitted on the ground floor, they keep drilling and it's really loud and really annoying. But anyway, we are going to jump into the first book. It was a review copy that was sent to me by Alan and Unwin, so thank you very much to them. It is an Australian young adult title called Two Can Play That Game by Leanne Yong. This was just so much fun. You guys know that I don't read YA as frequently as I used to, but I do still try and pick up Australian titles when and where I can and where I'm interested in them. This one had intrigued me, particularly because of the cover, but also because it features 2 BIPOC main characters who are gamers and who enter into this competition where they are trying to win a series of indie games in order to claim a prize. The story is told from the perspective of Sam Koo, who is determined to get her hands on this limited edition indie game that comes with the chance to win a meeting with people who work in the gaming industry. And she really wants to get her hands on it because she's been designing video games for years and she just wants to get that professional feedback. So she has real incentive to get it. And just as she's about to grab the last copy that is on the table at her local store, Jay swoops in and grabs it, and the two of them are having this tug of war over this game, and he ends up one-upping her and purchasing it. But of course she cries foul, and the two of them decide to have this competition, the best out of 5 games, to see who will actually win this game that they both really want. Jay wants it for his brother, Sam wants it because she is planning on pursuing this as a career, and it goes from there. Their encounters are delightfully fun. They both know each other tangentially, but their families know each other quite well. There is some fun things in here, like the referral to the Asian Gossip Network, which is something that I've heard about from my Asian friends, and I heard about it when I was growing up, so that was a really fun element to it. But also the fact that this celebrates gaming culture, it highlights how much work goes into producing these games and the reasons why people love them. You also have escape rooms in here, which was really, really fun because the two of them end up going to an escape room together and having to work together, which is something that they haven't really been doing throughout their gaming competition because they've been competing against one another. You have neurodiverse rep in here for one of the side characters, one of the siblings is neurodiverse. You have a demisexual main character, Malaysian Australian rep, and it is just a really fun time. So thank you Alan Unwin for sending me the review copy. I will have a full review of this on my kids review channel as well this week. Then I read another book for review. This one was sent to me directly by the author. So this was Ready For You by Samantha Leigh. Samantha Leigh is a debut Australian indie romance author, and Ready For You is the first book in the Valentine Bay series. So our heroine in the story is Emily. She has escaped to the small town of Valentine Bay after her fiance dumps her 3 days before her wedding, and she's kind of disillusioned with the whole thing. She was a professional photographer by trade. She photographed weddings, but she's come to this small town. She's taken a job at the local veterinary clinic because she's kind of disillusioned with the whole idea of romance. But then she quite literally runs into local paramedic Josh, who is kind of grumpy and aloof and dealing with the loss of his high school sweetheart who died tragically a few years earlier. And he's kind of never recovered. His grieving process is kind of based off the way that his father has grieved the loss of his mother, which is he's not been able to let go of it. And so even though there's an attraction there, like nothing's really going to go anywhere until Emily's ex-fiance turns up in town intent on claiming her back and thinking that she's going to fall over herself to go back to him. Of course, she's not because she's really, really annoyed at him. And so Josh steps in and pretends to be her fake fiance. And then the entire town, because we love small towns when this happens, gets in on it. Word gets around that they are faking an engagement, and so they plan an entire fake wedding. It was just so fun and cute. Obviously there are some harder hitting topics in here as Josh is dealing with his grief and whether or not Emily wants to be any part of that as their feelings become real for one another. The first half of this book does feel like a debut book. I think some of the pacing could be tightened a little bit, but once I was hooked into the second half of the book, like I was fully invested and I wanted to see this couple succeed. So thank you very much to the author for sending me a copy of the book. Absolutely loved it, and I look forward to seeing the next book in the series because the 2 characters that it's going to be about are hinted at in this book and Can't wait. I also read Red Dirt Heart by N.R. Walker. Try saying that really quickly because it didn't come out of my mouth appropriately. This is about Charlie Sutton, who runs his family station, one of the largest operational farming stations in Australia, in the centre of Australia, and he has taken it over after the death of his father. It's hard work because that land is really unforgiving, and he has a close-knit group of workers who live on the property who help him with the daily farm work. And he accepts an American agronomy student who is going to come and live on the station for a couple of weeks and learn what it's like to live in such, you know, harsh and unforgiving territory and farm that land. And he never really expects Travis, who is just so enthusiastic. He throws himself into the work straight away. He gets along great with everyone, and Charlie finds himself falling for Travis, but he is very reluctant to get involved. One, because they have a working relationship. Two, because Travis is going to be leaving. And also because he doesn't want to let himself have something that he knows he can't have. That said, Charlie and Travis really can't help but be drawn into one another's orbit, and their relationship is just gorgeous. This is a fairly short book, but it was just wonderfully written, just like all of N.R. Walker's other books. It is it is set in Australia. You have a really small, close-knit found family group, which is lovely. There is some internalized homophobia in here that is discussed, as well as some people who take issue with Charlie being outed as gay. So be aware of that going into it and be kind to yourself when reading it. But it does show how Charlie does begin to accept himself and accept his relationships moving forward in the book, which was lovely. I also read another novella-length story that Kirsty told me to read. I basically got a message from her on, when was it? Must have been Wednesday, saying, you need to read Professional Development by Kate Canterbary. So I did. And I loved it. This is despite me having weird feelings about books about teachers, but anyway, I read it and I loved it. This is about two teachers who share the same job role and this tiny shoebox office, but they hate each other. In this particular story, Tara and Drew are forced by their boss to go to a professional development conference, and she tells them, no, you need to drive together. Don't be silly, just drive together, get it done. Work together, you'll be fine, despite the fact that they hate each other. And then on their way back, they get caught in a snowstorm. They have to take refuge in this closed down motel that only has one room with only one bed, and sparks fly. Like, it was delightful. Kate Canterbury just has this knack for drawing me into stories, and now all I want to do is read her backlist, like right now. I have other things that I need to do, but all I want to do is keep picking up Kate Canterbury books. So this is a problem, but it's not a bad problem to have. I also had a NetGalley arc of Mysteries of Thorn Manor by Margaret Rogerson, which was just lovely. I loved Sorcery of Thorns, but it has been so long since I've read it, and I probably should have reread it before I read the novella, but I still loved it. And I was remembering things as I was going along, and now I just want to reread it for the fun of it. It is this few days in the life of Nathaniel and Elizabeth as they find themselves getting trapped inside Thorn Manor because of one of the wards going haywire and forcing everyone who is currently inside the manor to stay inside the manor, which is a bit of a problem because Nathaniel is supposed to be holding this giant ball. The two of them, plus Silas and Mercy, who also works in the manor, have to try and figure out exactly which of the wards Nathaniel and Elizabeth tripped and how to undo it so that they can restore the manor to its former glory. I absolutely love Silas. It was fun, it was magical. Again, we have a sword-wielding heroine librarian, and what's not to love about that? I also did my first reread of Sweep in Peace by Ilona Andrews. This is the second book in the Innkeeper Chronicles, and as I was saying in the live show, there's a lot of things that I remember about this series, but I don't remember the order they happened in, and then I also don't remember the little tiny details. Once I started reading it, I remembered the basic story plot of this one, and I was so glad that I picked it up because I needed a comfort read this week. So it's been months since Dina's last guests have left the Gertrude Hunt, and she is desperate for money, but also for guests, because that's what Gertrude Hunt needs. And then she is approached by this mysterious man called George, who has links to the Edge series, which I still haven't read. And he is an arbitrator, and he has come to the Gertrude Hunt as the last resort to host a negotiation treaty between three warring factions: vampires, merchants, and the hope-crushing horde. Dina knows she's absolutely crazy to accept it, but she needs the guests, and the payout for this would be huge. And so she and the Gertrude Hunt set about preparing for this negotiation party. When I tell you that I was just turning pages and feeling so immersed in this world while I read it, I was just thrilled. And there is a very, very brief cameo of Dina's brother at the start of the book. He's the one who recruits George to the arbitrators, and we get to see a lot more of this world and learn a lot more about the politics of this world and how various groups interact with one another, and it was so great. I cannot wait to listen to the full cast graphic audio of this because it will be sensational. I just know it. And then finally, I read Office Hours by Katrina Jackson. I was reading this book as part of a members vlog, which will be coming out. If it isn't already out by the time the Books Beside My Bed video is out, it will be out very soon afterwards. This is about Dr. Deja Evans, who's on the fast track to tenure, and her relationship with Dr. Alejandro Mendoza, who they've seen each other on campus. They've both had a crush on one another, and then in this book, they finally decide to act on it. It is very sweet. It is very steamy. There is a lot of sex on page in this book because it is Katrina Jackson and she's always amazing at that. But there is also a big focus on the fact that Deja is trying to do her best to get tenure and to do as much as she can to secure that, and how hard it is for women of colour to succeed in academia without burning themselves out. So that is a huge plot thread through this book. I loved the forced proximity element of the story in here. I loved the fact that these two, once they get together, it's uncomplicated in terms of their relationship. They like each other, they want to be together, and so they are. A lot of the conflict comes from people of colour in academia being treated as different, and there is a really great scene between one of Deja's friends and Alejandro, who is basically put in his place because he is an ally, but he hasn't always been the best ally to women of colour. And he gets called out on that, and he's like, well, no, that's fair. And I deeply appreciated that in this story. So this was really, really fun. I'm glad I picked it up, and members, you will get more in-depth thoughts and reaction in a video very soon. So those are the books that I read this week. In the comments, I'd love to know if you have read any of them or if you're planning on picking them up. If you want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave a broom emoji down below. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.